Hey everyone, Shane here with etrailer.com. Today I have a flatbed trailer. I'm going to walk through how to install etrailer.com's 12-inch electric brake assembly. The brake assemblies we're going to be installing today are going to be 12-inch. They're going to be designed for 5,200 pound axles up to 7,000 pound axles. They're going to be self-adjusting, and what that means is as your pads start to wear down, it's automatically going to click because it's going to have a spring in there. It's going to click the knob on it. It's going to push those pads up against the inside of the rotor here to make sure that you have good pad contact and you're able to stop when you need to. The pads themselves, they're going to be fully bonded as opposed to riveted. Riveted, which I've seen a lot of in the past, when that pad wears down to where the top of that rivet is showing or comes up above it, what happens is the rivet starts digging grooves in the inside wall of your drum, and then your drum's toast. Where with it being fully bonded, you have full brake pad all the way down to the metal. So it's a much better solution than a riveted pad. This is going to come in a set of 2 for 1 axle. So you're going to have right hand and left hand. So if you're doing more than 1 axle, you're going to make sure you get another set. You can find those here at eTrailer. The backing plates are going to be E-coated, so they're going to hold it really well against rust and corrosion. As far as the installation, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Keep in mind your bearings inside of your drum. You need to check those when you take your drum off. They need to be replaced, replace them. Your inner seal, once you take your drum off, you're going to want to replace that inner seal. And also check your grease. If your grease smells like it's burnt, it needs to be replaced. Other than that, they're going to come in a set of 2. So your left hand and right hand side. So if you're doing more than 1 axle, you just want to make sure you pick up another set. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's walk you through how to get them installed. Start our installation. You go ahead and remove your wheel. Then we're going to remove this cap. Now, I don't think I can get a screwdriver back in there. I'm going to tap the side of it and see if I can get it to pop loose. I'm using a soft blow hammer. What we want to try not to do if we do this is not bend this cap. Looks like it broke loose a little bit there. Take a screwdriver, something with a sharp point, and we're going to pry this out. Now you really need to worry about that if you're not replacing your cap, which we're not going to be doing. Set that aside. Paper towels. I'll wipe some of this grease off of this nut here on the front. Then we're going to pop this retaining clip off. Take your screwdriver, get in back behind it like that. We'll pop that off. Clean it off a little bit. And we'll set it aside. We'll reinstall that later. We're going to remove this nut. This is your axle nut. Seems like it's on there a little tight. We're going to take an 1.5 inch socket. We should be able to just barely spin that to get it to come loose to where you can take it off with your fingers. Something I didn't mention that'd be nice to have is have a piece of cardboard or something for all these extra parts, or all these parts you're going to be taking off. Some of them we're going to be putting back on, and some things we're not. So clean off that axle nut because that will be reinstalled. There's 2 ways you can do this. There's actually a washer right here that rides against the bearing. You can pull the hole hub off and get this washer to pop off, which we're going to be taking the whole hub off anyway. But I like to separate this from the rest of it. Clean it off. It helps me inspect the grease to see if it's bad. It doesn't stink. Actually, I think this is new grease that's in here, so we're probably not going to be replacing it. But these parts that we're going to be putting back on, it's good to wipe them off, inspect them, make sure they're not damaged or anything like that, to make sure we don't have to replace those. Now we're going to pull our hub off, or our drum. What we don't want is when we pull it off, that outer bearing could fall out. We don't want that to fall out. If it falls out and hits the ground, it's toast, you need to get a new one. Put it over the front like this. We're going to slide this off. And flip it up like that. That inner seal is bad. You can see all this grease. It's all over the inside of this brake and right here. If that's on that brake pad, that is not going to stop anything. So, anytime you take a drum off, you need to probably replace the seal anyway. But I'm glad we're doing it now and replacing the brakes, that we happen to see that seal, because this brake was probably not working for our neighbor at all. So we'll go ahead and there's 5 nuts that run right along the inside here around the spindle. We're going to remove those nuts and we can remove this brake assembly. If you notice the inside of this drum here, all this grease and stuff. We're going to take some brake clean. I'm going to spray it in there, let it soak, break up some of that, and then I'll come back in and I'll wipe it out. So when we put it back on, our new brake assembly is not going to have any grease causing it to malfunction or anything like that. We want to make sure you're not spraying it down in there. We just want to spray the inside of the drum here. We'll let that soak. We can remove our brake assembly. Take a 9/16 socket. And these are not on here tight. Remove the 5 nuts. So once you get all the nuts off, have you a pair of cutters, because you're going to have 2 wires that are going to be on the back. Pull that off. And cut the wire. 2 wires going into the back of the brake assembly. And we'll get rid of this guy. Go ahead and wipe the grease off your spindle and check your spindle. If you got any grooves or burn marks or anything like that, the bearings are also going to have to replace. These look really good. Looks like our neighbor's been maintaining the grease in it really well. So I don't think we're going to have a problem with the bearings. Just wipe that off if you get any contaminants or anything. We'll come back and we'll put a little bit more grease on it before we put our new hub on. We'll take our wires that we cut, strip back the ends. I'm going to add on a heat shrink butt connector onto each end. We're going to take our new brake assembly. We're going to have a couple wires coming off the back of it. It doesn't matter which one goes into which wire, as long as there's a positive and a negative, or a power and a ground. So once you get them crimped on, I highly suggest using heat shrink because they are going to be outside. It'll keep the connections from corroding. We'll take our heat source and we'll shrink them up. One thing I didn't mention is you're going to have a right hand and a left hand side brake assembly. You want to make sure you're putting the correct one on the correct side. If you don't know, it's going to sound weird, if you don't know the right from the left on the trailer, you're standing at the back of the trailer looking at the truck that's towing it or the vehicle that's towing it, that would be your right and your left. We're doing right hand assembly now. Other thing I want to mention is even though these are self-adjusting, once we put them on and we go to put the hub back over the top, we want to make sure that that hub is dragging on the brakes a little bit so that they wear evenly. If they're not, you have two little caps here, rubber caps. You're going to pop, I think it's this one, we're going to pop this one out and there's a little dial in there. You're going to use a little screwdriver or something to click it until you can feel those grab. Now I'll turn this over here. Right here at the bottom, this little guy right here. This is what you want to turn. Give it a couple of turns, spin the hub or the drum, see if it's dragging. And you only want it to drag a little bit. If it's not, turn it till it drags a little bit. We'll go ahead and get this put back in place. You want to make sure that the magnet's at the bottom there. Reinstall the nuts that you removed. You don't necessarily have to use a torque wrench when you tighten these down. The only reason why I am is because I don't want to over tighten them. So I got it set at about 25 to 30 pounds. I just want to make sure they're tight enough, but not too tight. Now we're going to come back, go ahead and clean this out. We definitely do not want any of this on our new brake pads. So you can see how clean it is. I cleaned all of it off. Take some brake clean, spray it in there, wipe it off. I get you, a box of paper towels or a good roll of it because it's going to take quite a few to clean it. But this is what you want it to look like. You want it to look clean and smooth. Next, we need to pop this seal out. I don't have a seal puller. I'm just going to use a pry bar. What you want to make sure you do is watch when you push this in underneath that seal, we're not damaging the bearing. All we want to do is sit and pry this edge up, work our way around it until we get it to come out. Now we're going to reinstall our new seal. I think whoever put the seals in there before drove them down in there too far. They're not supposed to be down that far. What we want is we only want them level with the top of this lip here. So, if you have a seal driver, great. A block of wood like this works good too. You just want to make sure you get it in there even. So we'll give it a couple of taps. If you use a block of wood, you can hear the difference in that sound. Now we're even with this lip. I'm going to take a little bit of grease from the cap. And we're going to spread it in the spindles or in the spindle here, so when we slide our bearings on and our seal, it doesn't drag. And we don't need to glob it on there. We're going to take our drum. We're going to very carefully slide it on. Push it all the way back as far as you can get it. Take our bearing. Make sure it slides in there. Once you get your axle nut hand tight, torque wrench, set it to 50 pounds because we have the locking washer that looks like this. If you have a cotter pin, you're going to set your torque wrench to 30 pounds. Go to 50 pounds and we're going to spin it when we turn it. Once you hear it click, you're going to take and back off that axle nut. Or you can turn it with your fingers. We're going to go back, and we're just going to put just a slight turn on it, just like that. And we're going to snap this into place. This is going to keep that axle nut from backing off. You may have to do this a couple times because of the threads on the spindle. It likes to be a pain and not go on there straight, and we want it on there straight, so like that. We'll come back and reinstall our cap. I'm going to make sure the cap is sealed all the way up against the drum. Once you're done with that, inspect your wires to make sure they're not hanging down too far. If they are, you can zip tie them up a little bit together. Other than that, you're ready to go. Once you get your cap put back in place, check your wires, your brake wires that you hooked up, to make sure they're not hanging too low. It could potentially get caught on something, because that will obviously not make your brakes work if they get broke apart. If they are, just kind of zip tie them up. Once you're done with that, go ahead and repeat the process for any other wheel you're going to be doing. As I mentioned before, it is going to be recommended that if you're replacing one on one axle, replace them both at the same time. Once you've got your other ones completed, go ahead and reinstall your wheels. Make sure you torque the lug nuts down to the proper torque specs for the lug size you have and the wheel size. Once you're done with that, you're ready to go. It's going to do it for a look at an installation of the etrailer.com electric brake assembly on our flatbed trailer.